got it going. With the spin of the wheel, we'll uncover our fate and stream it to you on one take. We tend to be loud and we fight quite a bit, but it's an unscripted show, so you get what you get. If we stopped it right now and we just walked away, we'd be back here next week, cause we just can't wait to play.
Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we're scheduled for a tag team event going one fall with a 30 to 50 minute time limit. Introducing myself first, from parts unknown,
New
Amigo
Jersey.
Aaron, and my tag team partner from deep in the Ozark Mountains, it's Trucker Brent.
You know what? I'm immediately going to heel turn.
Oh, no.
Who else is in the building? Somebody come in, bring me a chair.
Listen, this is a very special ARG event because tonight, and tonight only, we will be talking about team fighting.
Unless it happens again, like it already has.
Now, this is absolutely, yeah, but teams are in pairs or more. And tonight, we're going to talk about games that feature teams fighting one another in mass combat. Now, you know,
Yes.
this is sort of right in our wheelhouse, the Brent, when it comes to this sort of thing, because we're both fighting game, I don't want to say aficionados, but I would say fans. We'll go with that, because aficionados are good at the game.
Exactly.
We're more like we want to be good, but we're not that good.
Or casual good.
No, so when it comes to games that have a team aspect to them, this was late in the game, fighting game wise, taking wrestling out of it. We didn't get there. You know, the first few generations of fighting games were just solo affairs.
Sure.
And you know, I think it was during the Neo Geo era. It's when the tag team situation came in, and some of those like mid to late '90s Neo Geo fighting games. What were when you first saw this odd concept of having a partner in these games? How did you feel about it?
Well, I never saw the Neo Geo Team Fighters before anything else. The first thing I saw was X-Men vs. Street Fighter.
Yeah.
Which is my favorite arcade game of all time. So obviously, bing, I approve.
Yeah.
But here's my thing, Aaron. There are so many different aspects to the team games, different gameplay elements. Like the very first fighting tag game, again, eliminating all the wrestling stuff, you had to be in your character had to be in a certain place on the board and able to tag in the other partner.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a cool concept that they should have kept, or do you think it's crap and you're glad
Well,
they got rid of it?
As a wrestling fan, all right, what they've got in wrestling is if one guy's getting pounded by a couple other guys, he'll do a front roll or a somersault or a dive, and he'll make what they call in the business the hot tag.
Yeah.
The hot tag is great. The crowd goes wild, and then the other guy comes in and starts cleaning house with the two guys that have been beating up his partner. So when it comes to like having a certain spot, just like in a wrestling ring, I do think the idea, on paper, mind you, it sounds good. If I'm playing a fighting game, especially now when I've gotten used to the concept of just hitting a button combination and another partner coming in, it's a little tough to swallow. But I mean, I can see you implementing that sort of thing in a modern game and giving it a special twist that might make it kind of fun.
Well, I have to say, going back and looking in retrospect, where you had to be in the area to tag, it does add a gameplay element that no other tag game has.
Sure.
Because you can actively work to keep your opponent outside of that tag area. So that's a pretty neat concept. I'm glad they didn't really stick with it. I think the tag elements they have now are better, but I think it's still pretty interesting. It would be kind of neat as a gameplay mode. Maybe not a full game based around it, but a gameplay mode. I don't think it would be easy to implement. Another thing for tag fighting and fighting games, the assist. Something where you can just hit a combo of buttons and your teammate will just come in and do one attack and then zoom back out.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy that aspect of it?
You know, if you take the Versus series, where this stuff really came into its own, the assist, it's neat to have that extra character. Like, if you're playing like Marvel vs. Capcom 2, for example, you've got that horde of characters to play. Plus, you've got all those assistants.
Yeah.
I mean, tons, like Thor and all these weird Capcom characters you don't even remember that are assistants. It's kind of neat to see them make a quick guest appearance, but it's also irritating because it seems it's hard to prepare yourself for it. It's hard to block it when it comes in. And it's someone that's very skilled with using that technique, it makes you extra double dangerous because it's something that's hard to defend against.
What about the limited uses of outside interference like that?
I'm okay with that, you know.
I've always found that the number is typically high enough that I never use them all anyway.
Yeah. One of the things I like along those lines, and I don't know exactly when when Capcom introduced this, but the ability to basically take the character the guy's playing on the screen and just boot them.
Yeah,
and make them swap out.
Yeah, X-Men. Well, I was going to talk about that too. X-Men versus Street Fighter had that, where you could actually do a move and that would kick. It would take a power bar, but you would kick, and the other guy would be forced to come in. And if you did it right, you could pretty much lay straight into a combo. I like that aspect. I don't think it is nearly effective enough. What it does, though, is you can clear off somebody's regen bar doing that. If someone used one character for a very long time and then swapped out, you know, they've got the whole huge regen bar that they're trying to fill up, letting the other guy fight, you can swap out and cancels all that. I think that's the best use for it. What about actual tag-up team moves? Where you've got both your guys or multiple of your guys in there all doing a super move at one time.
I like that. It's cool looking. They always do it. I'll get more into that when we talk about my game in particular, where it's probably the best that was ever implemented.
Yeah, it feels real good.
But it makes sense. It's funny now. You've got some games have moved up though. Instead of having a partner, you've got two partners.
Yeah,
it's a 6-man tag at that point, and then it gets like I've watched some gameplay where you've got all three guys crushing a guy.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, really. It's so goofy looking. I think maybe that might be a bridge too far to have that much action going on. But it's okay. You know, like I said, I don't know. I've never fully embraced the tag thing. It's fun. I mean, what do you like about it? You get to pick two guys. That's cool. I like the idea that you get to pick two guys. And I like the idea that you're going to fight two different guys. And it is fun to think about how these teams would coexist.
Yes.
You know, that's sort of fun to think about, like, why is Sakura with, like, the Hulk? I don't know.
Exactly.
You know, it's like, that doesn't make any sense to me. It's like, blank and who? It's like, what's going on here? So, that's amusing. The fanfic is always in your mind. Is pretty good.
Yeah.
That's probably the best part of it.
Two more aspects I want to talk about.
Yeah.
One is the fighting game that has a single elimination, where if either of the fighters lose out their health bar, then that's it, round over.
Yeah.
What do you like that? Do you prefer that, or do you like it where you kill one and then the partner comes in?
I mean, obviously, you cut down on the amount of time you're going to get for your quarter, or you know, if you're playing the arcade. I don't know. I'm so used to the 2 out of 3 falls in a match that it's kind of tough to get used to. On the flip side, you've got to make those tags. It sort of like forces you to educate yourself on how to do that. So, I mean, I can understand. I personally, it's not my favorite, but I have played some games where that's in there. It's not my favorite.
For me, I would like it, again, much like the tag zones, I would like to see it as an option in more games, but not base your game around it.
Yeah, I agree.
And one last aspect, Aaron, of team fighting that I want to get your opinion on is team fighting in fighting games, not wrestling games, where a second opponent controls the second guy. What are your feelings on that?
So you're talking about a tag team match where the two players are controlled by two separate humans.
Yeah, when you tag in, it's actually a different person playing.
I didn't know there were any games like that.
There are several, and their gimmick is you can do a super move so that both of your guys are on the screen at the same time, and you both have full control of your character.
Really?
Yeah.
So is this like on the home version against a computer? Like,
no,
how would this work in the arcade? How would you have to?
It's a 4-player cabinet.
You're kidding me? Can you? What is this game?
There's several.
Can you name a couple for me?
A lot of them are in the Neo Geo like spin-off crazy games.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's several of them that do it. And what's neat was the video I was watching. you had two guys fighting each other like normal fighting. One person does the thing that calls in the second guy, and then the other guy calls in the thing that does the second guy. So you have 4 human playing characters all fighting at one time. Craziness.
You got to link me up to. We'll put something in the show notes, but I've never seen this or heard of it. I love the idea of that. It's sort of a dream idea to have 2 players against 2, like in a tag team situation. That would be a lot of fun. The controls and the panel and the machine would be bizarre looking. I will say that.
Well, my biggest problem with it is, I mean, if you're playing in a casual setting where who cares if you win or lose, I think it's far more enjoyable. It becomes sort of a party game because it is craziness. The videos I saw were just off the charts crazy. But like in an arcade setting, no.
Well, if you had a couple ringers, think of what 2 super experienced players could do to you.
Yeah.
With the ability to do that. I mean, it's a scary thought,
Yeah.
but I mean, it would be a lot of fun. I mean, it's fun when you play like WrestleFest or something with 4 people, so it'd be just as much fun, I think, in a fighting game. I've never heard of that. I love the concept.
Yeah.
It sounds great.
So, Aaron, we, in our infinite wisdom, in our second time around, in our glorious game selection mode, had a chance to look at 2 different fighting genre games.
Vastly different.
And I think I'm going to lead the dance here.
All right.
Because I definitely think mine's way off the beaten path.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
I chose Pokemon Stadium
Yes.
for the N64. This does solely meet the criteria for team fighters. I think you'll have to agree with me on that.
Yeah.
And it is definitely a part of my childhood, whether I want it to be or not. It is one of those games where I never owned it. I'll say that right off the bat.
Really? I actually own a copy of this for real.
Yeah. But it is something I played in, of all places, my fraternity when I was in college.
I believe it.
So, Pokemon Stadium. Before we go over all of the gameplay elements, we have to talk about why this was special. First things first, Pokemon Stadium as it is in North America and the rest of the world, minus Japan, where Pokemon Stadium was actually Pokemon Stadium 2. And I'm not going to get deep in the woods about it.
Really?
Basically, Pokemon Stadium, when it released in Japan, was going to be a 64DD game. And it only had about a third of the roster of characters, which they planned on milking people to buy upgrades with the disc and all that jazz. And then, of course, the 64DD didn't go global. And when they released it, they said, "Oh, we can't do all the quote unquote DLC that we want to do. We're just going to put everything on one cart, and that's how we're going to release it to the world." There is, of course, a Pokemon Stadium 2 outside of everywhere else except Japan that extended the roster another 160 some people.
Holy smokes.
To include Generation 2 of Pokemon.
Really?
But we're not going to worry about any of that today.
I'll worry about it after the show. I'll tell you that.
We're only going to focus on the North American release of Pokemon Stadium, which came out in March of 2000. The equivalent in Japan was released in 1999.
Okay.
So this was definitely during the time when Japanese releases were always about a year ahead, no matter what it was, to the rest of the world. And of course, usually poor EU and Australia gets pushed even farther than that. So Pokemon Stadium has you battling your Pokemon. You have a team of 6 where you choose 3 of those Pokemon to do battle in an arena. And I don't mean battle as in you control your character. I mean battle as in just like you would fight in the role-playing game. You say, okay, Charmander, do your slash attack. Which Charmander doesn't have a slash attack, but anyway. And he does it, and you do damage based off of weaknesses of your opponent. And of course it has stuff like defense and special defense and speed that's all calculated in. But it's a role-playing fighting game. There's no question mark about it. It's a role-playing fighting game.
Where's the role playing part start exactly?
Well, you're playing as a trainer. You're issuing commands. You're not actually doing the battling yourself.
it's a strategic battle simulator.
Sure, we can go with that. Now, Aaron, I know you were not you were too old to get into the Pokemon craze
On contraire.
when it launched.
I'll put it this way. I went on a high school trip to the zoo.
Okay.
All right. The band was there. I was in high school, and I picked up a Pikachu stuffed animal because I thought he was cool looking, and that was in high school. So Pokemon's been around for a long time.
I agree.
So yes, I knew all about Pokemon.
Okay.
After I got home, I was like, "What is this thing?"
Oh, but you didn't play any of the games, right?
I did. I've played several of the games.
Okay.
Plus the Roblox equivalents. I've played tons of those too.
I was a pretty big Pokemon fan when it released, up until really my college years, because my girlfriend at the time got a big kick out of them. So that kind of pushed me down the road a little bit farther than I would have probably stuck with it. There you go. The big gimmick behind this, the big push that this was bringing to the public, was you could take the Pokemon that you raised, that you fought, that you gamed with on all of your Game Boy games, red, blue, and yellow, and you could bring those over into the power of the N64 using the included transfer pack.
Yes, oh yeah.
And let me tell you something. This was brilliant. The concept of this was brilliant, because when you play these games, as silly as it might sound to people who don't play these type of games, you do get attached to your little digital pet person, okay? And you can name them. You can actually erase moves that they have by default and teach them new moves as part of the Game Boy games. So you have very special, very unique characters. And you can pull those off of your Game Boy games and put them into this battle environment and battle your friends and do all that kind of stuff. It's a very neat concept. On top of that, something else that you could do with your transfer pack was actually use it as sort of a Super Game Boy, where you could play the Pokemon games, red, blue, and yellow, on the big screen on your television with the cart plugged into the transfer pack. That was there was the only way you could do it on the N64.
I didn't know about that.
You couldn't do it with other games, but you could do it with that. You actually went to a special section inside of Pokemon Stadium. The other thing that this allowed you to do was to play little mini games. There were 9 mini games included on Pokemon Stadium, and they are the most basic of basics. Hit a button at the right time, hit the button to jump hurdles while you run, memorization type games, hit the buttons as fast as you can type games, that sort of feel. But it was a little extra added bonus because Pokemon Stadium had no story mode. It had no way to, elongate the gameplay outside of fighting in tournaments. There was no story behind it. It was just you go in there and you do your thing. If you didn't have the Game Boy game and you didn't have your own Pokemon to transfer, all 151 characters were rentable. They called them rentals. So you could take, and all the characters were available for you to fight. The problem was you couldn't customize them at all. You couldn't change their names. You couldn't change their movesets. They were as they were.
Yeah.
So people bringing their characters over using the transfer pack, you could have an advantage. It was nice enough at least to level all of the Pokemon that you rented up to level 100, which gave it kind of a balanced playing field in that regard. And the different tournaments that you played in, actually, some would knock down the levels. Some would say you could only have Pokemon that were unevolved, or under a certain condition you couldn't have more than X amount of things that could cast sleep. So they did kind of refine it, so you did have the ability to play more than what you normally do, your biggest, baddest Pokemon, and still be competitive. I thought that was a pretty neat idea. But it didn't stop there. The other thing you could do with the transfer pack is it had a picture mode. And in the picture mode, you would just look at your 3D, first time ever rendered in 3D outside of Pokemon Snap, picture mode where you could rotate the camera around and take digital screenshots of your Pokemon, which you could then take to a Blockbuster and have printed on stickers. All this in this incredibly unassuming package.
Did you ever do that?
No.
I was hoping you'd say yes. I could give you the super nerd treatment then.
So they added so much extra value, so much extra non-game value to this game that it made it, Aaron. How high? Do you know how well this sold?
Real well. It was in the top 10 of both.
It was number 5.
Yeah.
Of the highest selling N64 games of all time. Number 5. And why did it do that? Well, it had the Pokemon name.
Yeah.
It had a lot of first for the series. It had a $7 million marketing campaign. Now, all that didn't go straight to Pokemon Stadium. But here in the U.S., holy crap, I saw that commercial about 7,000 times.
Yeah, it got played a lot.
It was an immense push.
Wasn't it like an Olympics knockoff or something, like a track and field knockoff? The commercial, I'm trying to remember.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. How did it review? Middle of the road.
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't like the shift to no story mode or no adventure mode, and you were just battling over and over and over. So it got 7s and 8s and 9s, which is still incredibly good.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it is just a fighting game at its core.
It is.
Yes, you had all these other things you could do, but it was a fighting game with 151 roster spots. Aaron, what did you think of Pokemon Stadium?
It's funny because I was thinking about this earlier. There is no adventure mode in this game. It's all tournaments basically.
Right.
And going past the stickers and the Game Boy cartridge thing. Which
Sure.
That's all interesting. And I remember when me and Luke played this, I was like, it's odd that this is all there is. It feels like there's not a game here. And then it occurred to me today, I was like, well, most fighting games are exactly like this. So if you look at it from that aspect, if you're a big Pokemon fan, then this is would be right up your alley. It's funny when they made the sequel to this, Pokemon Coliseum 2, and they have an adventure mode in that. I remember thinking to myself, can't we just get to the fighting? Which is, but my son, and if you play any of the more recent offerings on the Switch, it's Adventure Mania
Yes.
run a while. It's nothing like this. So, but the basic combat hasn't changed all that much. But the aspect of the game is more like the second one than the first one. This one was no frills when it comes to the actual. I mean, they did a good job of setting the scene. The announcer and stuff, it makes you feel like...
The announcer's great.
Well, I mean, it's repetitive because he couldn't put that much audio on
great.
it, but he's good. And it makes you feel like you're watching, like, the cartoon. A lot of the guys look like guys from the cartoon. I wish... It's funny, navigating the menus in this is a nightmare.
It's not great.
No, it's not... It's... What is it with Nintendo? Why can't they get this simple... They've got this game. Can't you get the menu system down? And the controller for the N64 is an abomination. So that's a pain, but luckily this isn't a game like it's not like Killer Instinct or something where you're trying to navigate. So for this, it's okay, but still, it's the menu system in this is weird, and it's hard to get your head around some of it. Now I know there are hacks for this game that allow you to do more with it, with the roster. The roster seems expansive. You're like, 160 Pokemon or whatever.
151.
But the problem is, like you said, you can't really. If you're not, unless you're porting your stuff up or cheating or have a save file, you can't do much outside of just fighting the stock guy.
There's no customization, correct.
With all that said, what you can do is fight somebody else, like another human, which is great. That's what we used to do a ton. Me and Luke would get teams together and fight. It was a good time. It has multiple tournaments. You're right, it's got multiple stadiums for different sorts of strategy.
Limitations.
You can have powerful guys. You can have low-end guys. It's funny, until this week, I didn't know this game had an ending. which
Yeah.
I don't know if you're going to talk about that.
All right, no. Go
Well,
right
it
ahead.
does. If you complete all the tournaments, and maybe you have to do something.
Oh, 100% it. Yeah.
And I never played the mini games that much. They were an afterthought, just like most
they
of these things are.
Yeah.
But if you get to the end of the game, then they march out Mewtwo for you to have an ultimate battle with. Now, you'll recall when Pokemon the movie came out, Mewtwo was like the King Dong.
Yeah.
Like, that was the guy they were pushing back in the day. And if you beat him, then you get to see the credits roll. I never played it because we played it just to fight each other.
Right.
But my son, I think, has beaten all the tournaments. I don't know what else you have to do.
Well, if you 100% this game, which is nigh on impossible unless you have a transfer pack.
I watched the guy. It was almost 8-hour walkthrough, and that was going bananas.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah.
But if you are able to 100% this game, you get a special Psyduck, and a Psyduck is one of my personal favorite Pokemon.
I like
But
Psyduck.
You get a special Psyduck that can do special things. But I mean, to get to that point is insanity.
Could you transfer the Pokemon out of this to the Pokemon Coliseum 2?
Why would you want to?
I don't know. You transferred them up from the Game Boy. Why can't you transfer them to the next one?
Between the Stadium 1 and Stadium 2, I don't know.
Yeah, it'd be something I'd wonder. Like the special Psyduck, you might want to bring him along.
Yeah.
You know, but this is a game. I mean, I remember paying. I bought the cartridge for Luke because that's back when the N64 was not really emulatable.
Yeah.
And you couldn't play it in the browser, for example. And I think I didn't pay more than $10 for it, maybe 15.
There's a lot of them floating
for the loose
around.
cartridges. There's so many. But I mean, this is a game. If you're not into Pokemon, run. If you're watching this, you're like, team fighting, this sounds great, and you're like, I'm going to get this Pokemon Coliseum, which don't do that. You're not going to like it because it's not fighting in the conventional sense. And I will say, eventually you will get bored with it, but
Yes.
but I mean, there is a charm to it, and if you know your Pokemon, and that means knowing your different types,
Weaknesses,
grass
strengths,
types, insect
spins,
types,
yeah.
what is immune to fire, takes less damage, if you are like, my son is the King Dong of this, he knows it all. So like, he knows the good matchups, and I will say, this thing plays fair. It knows the matchups too, and so you'll know if you're going to do more damage if you're playing a water type and you're fighting a fire type or whatever. So it rewards you for knowing that. It's got art in it that looks like it's like pulled out of the cartoon. They did a good job. It's not like, I mean, it's like hand drawn art. That part's not in 3D. Just different characters you fight and stuff. You never see them. You see their picture.
Yeah.
You know, so
trainers, yeah.
This was a concept that they improved upon eventually. But I mean, this right here, because I never liked the Game Boy Pokemon games. That didn't do it for me. But this, I could sit down and play this. Like, I played this longer than I planned to play it this week. And it's a good time. It's okay. You know, it's an okay. If you're into Pokemon, it's better than okay. You know, if you're not, you're probably not going to be into it at all.
For me, back then, it was a mixed bag because I wanted a Pokemon fighting game that was actually you control the Pokemon, you're doing the moves.
Yeah, but how would that work?
It does exist. Much later.
That was on the Switch too. I played that. Yeah.
So this was at the time for me a disappointment because by this time, this was after my place got robbed, so I didn't have my game anymore. So there was no way for me to transfer my characters onto the system. Plus, I didn't own the game, so I would just sit down, pick out a roster, fight a few people, and then I was done. When I played it in a modern setting recently, it's fun for me because I get to go back and test my knowledge of who does what, who's strong against who. You can still get critted and take an unfortunate loss. So there is some randomness involved. It's not just pure by the numbers. Am I going to go back to this? No, I'm done. I had my few hours. I'm never going to try to work up all the tournament ladders, all that crap. But I'm glad that I went back and chose this as my game because it's something that's very unique that I don't think a lot of people would think of as a team fighting game, but it's 100% a team fighting game.
Oh yeah, and you manage your roster and you could pull Pokemon in and out of combat if you need to, if they're having trouble. It is glorifying and makes you happy when your Pokemon's knocking at the door and he delivers that fatal blow to the opponent that you didn't expect to happen. But I mean, for the most part, most of the fights are beatdowns.
Yeah, well,
mean,
again, it depends on your knowledge.
Well, I mean, most of the fights are beatdowns until you get later on in. Early on, it's just like you feel like King Dog of Pokemon.
Oh, sure, sure.
And then eventually and then sometimes you'll be frustrated. There'll be some guys you can't beat. The second one I played a lot more. With the one thing it does is that it makes you want to beat people more because you're actually talking to them, and they're like jerks. They're like, I would have crushed this jerk kid, you know. So that's one aspect that this thing didn't have.
If someone would like to pick this up for the N64,
yeah.
On the old eBays, you're looking at about $20 to $30 per cart loose. Which really, that's a pretty good retainer of value.
Yeah.
So I guess
how much was it?
$20 to $30.
Really, I'm surprised it's that much.
Yep,
Jeez.
those are, and it can go far, far higher. The gold carts are going for about $90, and the new in box crap, don't forget about it.
Yeah.
So, but that was my little trip down memory lane.
Well, we got a
Aaron.
review on this if you're.
Oh, absolutely.
So
who would review this?
Who else? Pajakos, too. He chimes in, well, I'm familiar with Pokemon. I know very little about it as a subject. But it is clearly a license to print money for Nintendo, so it's no wonder where they went after the Power World folks. By the way, my son played Power World, too. Still plays it. I'm sure it does a good job of replacing the card game in digital form, and it's very easy to actually play. But without knowledge about what the Pokemon and how they interact, it's difficult to understand what's actually going on most of the time. You probably can wing it for a while and learn it all, but stadium doesn't really seem to educate you much. I played a few rounds. It was kind of fun, but I quickly ran out of enthusiasm when I couldn't work out why attacks didn't seem to do the same things when I tried them against the computer as they did against me. There are a few mini games that are okay but feel tacked on. Maybe they'd be more fun in multiplayer. Graphics and audio are spot on. All Pokemon look great rendered in their low poly forms.
They do.
This is very much a game aimed at folks who like and know lots about the world of Pokemon, and that is not a bad thing by any means. And not one I can feel like I can objectively score, but if you are new to Pokemon, don't bother with this game unless you have a few hours to learn what you need to know. I'd say that he nailed it there, Brent, because this is not the kind of thing you're going to probably get into. I mean, if you're bored and just want to fool with it, it's a good time.
You can connect with your kids.
Yeah.
I mean, Pokemon. I play a Pokemon game every day on my phone. I play the trading card game, but it's funny. I don't battle. I open my free packs. I collect my free card, and that's it. I just collect the cards on there. I'm a nerd. What can I say?
I play that game. I've played that game many times. The online card game. I enjoy Pokemon the card game. It's okay. I mean, it's not super duper complex, which is nice.
It's super easy.
And but of course, it's just like any other collectible card game. There are cards out there that are ridiculous, and there are people out there willing to pay ridiculous money for them to hose you and to script your good time.
Yeah.
When me and Luke go up to the camp, sometimes we keep a Pokemon set up there, and we've got a board and everything, and we'll fire it up every once in a while. And so far, I'm whooping the kids high at Pokemon. So it's good to show you, just because you know all there is to know about Pokemon doesn't mean that Lady Luck's on your side.
That's true.
She's on my side all the time.
It's the coin flip-a-mania.
That's right.
So, Aaron, what did you bring to the party?
Well, I thought after the last show where I picked a wrestling game, after we sat here and said that those don't really count, I thought it's like, you got to come in here with something to like revitalize your rep. And I was like, what am I going to play? So I looked around. I tried a few different options that I thought I'd like to learn about, including I looked at the Tekken Tag. I didn't know there was a sequel to that. There's a Tekken Tag 2.
Yeah.
I looked at that. I looked at that Kazuya Encounter, the first, allegedly the first tag team fighting game. And I thought to myself, let's try something a little different that I've always wondered about. And so what I settled on was Rival Schools. Rival Schools, a game from Capcom, is an unusual, wacky game. And I remembered playing this in the arcade back in the day when it came out, and then on the PlayStation, and thinking to myself, I don't remember thinking much about the story because we just skipped over all the cutscenes.
Yeah.
So this time I told myself, you're going to figure this out. And I did. And I'm going to share it with all you. So let's talk about
Whether
it.
you like it or not.
So rival schools in Japan was known as Private Justice Academy, Legion of Heroes. That's a name right there.
You
can hang a hat on that name.
Although I still like the tagline for the American games better. Was it Connected by Fate?
Oh, I like the one. I'll see you after school, and the guy's like, he's gonna beat you down. This again was developed and published by the Capcom, and designed. This, by the way, I should mention, came out in the arcade in '97 in Japan and North America. It's a multiplayer or single player fighting game. By the way, interesting tidbit: it runs on the Sony ZN-2 engine. So Capcom used a Sony arcade system for this.
Interesting.
So you're probably asking yourself, what else ran on this wacky arcade system? And here's how I knew about this. There used to be a simulator called Zinc. And when Zinc came out, it emulated this board. Remember Zinc?
Zinc.
So here are the big time players that you could play on the Sony ZN-2. Star Gladiator 2. All right, remember Star Gladiator?
Yeah.
Street Fighter EX2 and EX2 Plus. Strider 2, Techromancer, and the one I played on this board by far the most, Tetris the Grand Masters. That was the only one I played because it had battle Tetris. That's why we played it a lot back in the day. So, and just an FYI, they picked this allegedly so they could easily port these games to the PlayStation.
Yeah, it makes sense.
This game was co-designed by Hideki Itsuno. So why do I bring him up? Well, he's a pretty big deal. You ever heard of these Devil May Cry games? And the Devil May Cry, you never know. He also did the Dragon Dogma games, the Power Stones, One Piece Mansion, and he was the guy that was behind some of the Capcom versus SNK games, especially the second one. So the word on the street is, the rumor is that Capcom was looking for some kind of game to go down the pike of the 3D games like your Tekkens and your Virtua Fighters and whatnot. Now they came out with the original Star Gladiator. It was received pretty well. I never liked that game, I'll be honest with you. It did have the crazy alien with the yo-yos, but that's about all I remember. But there's a dinosaur in there too, I think.
I believe so, yeah.
So anyway, they were like, did okay. Like, what can we do? So this guy, Itsuno, and his crew were like, okay, we got an idea for a fighting game. Now this is an original idea. We're going to gather all the greatest fighters on Earth and have a battle to determine who's the best fighter. And they shopped this concept around at Capcom Labs. And Capcom Labs guys are like, hey, I don't know about that one. And they're like, okay, we're going to retire that for retooling. And so they got to thinking, what are people passionate about? And they thought to themselves, and this is Japan, mind you. They're passionate about their schools, their alma maters. I don't mean their colleges, they're high schools.
Exactly.
What about a game where there are rival schools that are battling each other? And people were like, yeah, that sounds pretty good. And lo, it came to pass. And so that was the concept behind rival schools. Rival schools is a series of teams that all come from different schools. Thus the name rival schools, right? When you look at the way rival schools are set up, when you look at the main menu on it, you'll see teams, in America, you'll see teams of 3 and all the way down to one team of 2. And these are all representing different schools. I'm not going to go through every character because it'd take forever.
Yeah.
But I will tell you what makes this game unique is, and what makes these characters kind of fun, is that they took the concept of different schools and they ran with it. For example, there's a school that specializes in sports. Okay, so what do you got at that school? You got a volleyball player and a baseball player and a guy who plays soccer. Makes sense. You've got a school that is for like the elite, the elite types. Well, the people, you've got the staff in this game. You got the guy that teaches foreign languages and then school nurse. But you can see there's a school that's like really let itself go. Like it's ran by gangs. So who are your members? You got gang members. These tough guys that are in there. There's a school full of students from America. Because they're exchange students. They've got 3 American kids in the school. You can see where we're going here. This is how it works. So once you determine what your character is, so depending on where you play this game, I didn't know this either. In some arcades, there was a code you could put on the game, and it would let you pick kids from different schools to battle with. Now, what this did was it got rid of the storyline parts in between. They were gone. And so that just turned into a tag team fighting game, and you would go through the game. There's no storyline or nothing. But by default, the school thing was on. Also, in the Japanese version, and I think there's a code for this too, you could enable the two bosses to be played by the people. But in the default, so I just sort of went with the default, but there are two bosses which we'll get to that you can play. So once you've picked your school, it will determine what the storyline's going to be. Right? Because the story, but it doesn't change that much. But it's still, this game has a lot of cutscenes. So it's sort of like it's a lot like playing a console game in the arcade. Yeah. You have to sit through these cutscenes, and the characters have this back and forth dialogue. This dialogue is not going to win any awards. I mean, I know it was translated, but I mean, even by the standards of translation, it's dope-a-roo, all right? Once you pick your team, you enter the game. So what is the game? This game, if you've ever played Street Fighter EX, all right, this is a game, since it's on the same hardware as EX2, it's in a similar vein. Street Fighter EX was Capcom's attempt to get into the 3D fighting realm a la Tekken and Virtua Fighter, right? This was not a good attempt.
No.
I didn't like any of the EX games, but I think I know why. And I think the reason why is I'd already played E-Honda. I'd already played Ken Ryu, and so I had an idea what they look like. And what they don't look like is a series of small squares.
I don't want a slower, older, blockier version of E-Honda.
That's right. So when you play this game, because I played this today for the first time, or not today, but this week, for the first time in years.
Yeah.
And I was like, this looks okay.
Yeah.
Considering it was out in 97. And part of the reason is I've never seen any of these people. You know, so I don't have
-1.
I don't, except for Sakura,
Yeah.
and that you don't ever see her hardly. But so you look at him, you're like, okay, that's what this guy looks like. Batsu, or that's what they look like. So I think that goes a long way. I think they tried the same thing with Star Gladiator. It's just that game wasn't that good. So this is the better version.
This is the best game from this hardware, minus maybe Tetris.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when you start the game, you're in a 3D environment. And so think to yourself, what it reminds me most of is like one of the later Ballerina Toshinden type games. It's quicker. It's quicker than Ballerina Toshinden 1, but has more depth than 1 and 2 and probably 3. But it still doesn't have a ton of depth. It's got some.
And no ring outs.
And that's key. This is one game in the 3D world. Tekken's like this too. But the area you've got to play in is immense. It's like being on a football field.
Yeah.
And this is one of the few games I've played, I'll get into this, that uses all this length, which is good. So once you start the game, you've picked your two characters of your school, 2 of the 3 people. And then you start the storyline. I'll get to the storyline here towards the end, but I want to talk about the gameplay. Then you play the game. This is a 4-button game, which was the style of the time. It was also easier to port these home to the PlayStations and your Saturns and whatnot. And so this was the way things were going. You had a light and a heavy punch, light and heavy kick, and then combination of those two things to do your maneuvers in a joystick. This game, unlike the other tag games we'll talk about, or we spoke about, this game doesn't let you just tag whenever you want. You basically it's a solo game, and then you could swap your partner in between rounds.
Yes.
With a butt, okay? So this game has a meter at the bottom of the screen. When this meter starts flashing, that means it's good to go. So you use this meter for 2 things. To do your super moves, you have to do a joystick maneuver, a button combo, do your super moves, super punch, super kick, whatever. But if you hit 2 buttons at once, like a little explosion happens, and your guy power shoots up beside him, and he or she will do a maneuver on the opponent.
A punch or a kick, something basic.
And if it hits, then that's when you go into your tag team maneuver. So then your opponent, much like in wrestling, you got 5 seconds to come in and cheat. And they're running from the sidelines and will do one of 2 things. They will help you pummel your opponent, or they will come in and help you in some way. Most of the men do the pummeling. In fact, I think all the men. So that means sometimes they just come in and just 2 guys just beat the crap out of a guy in the middle. Sometimes there's, depending on the combination you've got, the volleyball chick might take a guy up in the air and spike him, and then the baseball player hits him like a baseball. Sometimes they'll pick a guy up and sail free fall for like this double power bomb. Sometimes they'll both fireball the guy.
Yep.
They're awesome. All these are awesome.
Yep.
Now, if you've got a chick partner that she's out of the ring, most of the time they will come in to help you. How does that work? Well, the nurse will come in, and while your opponent's mauled, she comes in, she throws your guy down on the ground and gives him a massage, like a full-on deep massage, and starts filling up that meter, you know. The American chick, Lords, the cheerleader, she comes in and just starts smooching you, you know. And then there's another chick that comes in, the volleyball chick. She comes in and rubs your shoulders, then smacks you on the butt as you're leaving. So clearly there's something going on here.
Well, the thing with the volleyball chick is when she runs in, she's giving you a pep talk, is what it is.
Yeah.
She's pepping you, and you regain some health. Your meter fills up more. And then she smacks you on the butt and exits. It's like, what just happened?
Yeah. It's real. It's always, I mean, listen, is it sort of sexist? Yes. But it's still funny. But don't get me wrong, the chicks also will occasionally, depending on who you've got in there, they'll double beat the crap out of you.
Sakura, my team was Sakura, because I didn't go through the story mode.
Yeah.
I just did individual fighting. So I had Sakura and the baseball guy.
Yeah.
And Sakura will take the guy and hit him up in the air and then smack him. He'll go flying across the screen, and the baseball guy's just waiting for him.
Yeah.
And just kaboom.
Yeah.
And when the baseball guy hits him, it makes the play field huge.
Yeah.
I mean, huge. If you don't run to get up to the guy, you can run out of time. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So it's these tag teams, even today, like here we are in the 27, 28 years later. These are still great and hilarious.
They are.
Sometimes they're fun, and sometimes they just look brutal.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's always a good time whenever you hit these. Plus, there's a good chunk of damage to your opponent. Other stuff this has that came from, like, because this came after the first Versus games, and so they took some stuff, like air juggles.
Yeah.
Like
to the nines.
They've got a thing called like a tardy, it's like a tardy break or something. That'll let you interrupt the guy. You could throw.
It's a counter.
You could throw stuff at the same time and hit a button combination and get counters off. So there are some. It's not just like plain Jane. But I mean, it's not super deep, but there's depth to it.
It's depth, but it's friendly.
You've got a lot of character, a lot of moves. Your characters also just have straight up throws. Sometimes just grab you and power bomb you. One of my favorite things, because one thing I like with this game is when you throw a punch or a kick, you can tell if you missed it badly. It's like a boxing match. If you miss a guy a whiff over his head, he may grab you by the waist and hit you with a belly-to-back suplex or a bulldog or something, and it looks cool.
Yeah.
The moves are real well done, and they look good. So I mentioned in between rounds, you can trade characters. When you bring in the new character, they're at full health. It's another round. If you keep the same character, he's at full health. It's another round. So it's still round systems, and that's the way it goes. And you basically continue on this way until you beat the game. Brent mentioned Sakura. She's not technically a playable character from Jump Street, but she was put in the game, and I read this on a couple different places. Capcom was like, you know, we don't have any Street Fighter people in this at all. We better put one in here just to, like, hedge our bets.
Yeah.
Like, to make people happy. And so they put Sakura in, and she does fit the mold because she's a schoolgirl. But there's another schoolgirl in there that I like that are great. But you've got, I mean, like I said, the cast of the game is fun. And even the two adults that are in it, you've got a leggy school nurse, and then you've got this kind of crotchety-looking language teacher. But they're both good fun. They're fun to play. I've played just about everybody in the game this week, and they're a lot of fun. My favorite team is probably the schoolgirl and her buddy with glasses. The American team is like just a dude and this cheerleader and this other guy. And the other guy's gimmick is he's going to become a priest. So he hates violence, but he sure enjoys whooping that butt in this game. So that's the game. Now let's talk about the storyline real quick. Because, like I said, perpetually you're interrupted by these storyline elements, including a whole battle that's a storyline element that happens towards the middle of the game. The gimmick is, depending on who you play, there's one of the schools is like, I think it's the school is the Justice High School. Something's going on there. And so, depending on who you play, either someone from your school got kidnapped or got beat up or something, and you're trying to solve the mystery. You know, and this is by the writers of the original Scooby-Doo. Because, I mean, it's dopey. And so what happens is a lot of the people you're fighting, once you beat the crap out of them, they snap out of it. But these people, much like when you watch an old like kung fu movie, like me and the Chud watch a couple of these old 70s kung fu movies, people get pissed off instantly. They have no backstep and will fight over anything. It's like a comic book. What did you say about that? I'll kill you. It's like, I didn't say that. That's too late. I'm fired up. So they'll fight.
What do you mean you're thirsty? I'll kill you.
So as you go through the game, you'll notice that sometimes they'll talk about the people having red eyes, or that means they're mind controlled. All right, so someone's mind controlling these different characters. Halfway through the game, this big, huge guy who's like a principal of that justice school comes out, and he's like, and you fight him, but he's got like a life bar that goes up for days.
Yeah.
I've never beaten him. I think if you beat him, you get to see the real ending, but I couldn't beat him. So I did beat him at the end of the game, but he's normal then. So what you end up finding out is that everyone's being mind controlled. Well, I hate to spoil it, but I'm going to. So you think at the end of the game, you're fighting the big principal guy who is the leader, and he's actually taking the guy that was in the guy you don't use. He's taking him hostage, basically, like mentally, and you have to fight both of them. But then you find out that his like nephew or something, this guy with a samurai sword, he's the guy that's been doing it all the whole time. He's super evil, and then you have to take him down. But the dialogue stuff's goofy. With all that said, and then I'm going to turn it over to you and let you get into this.
You've said that 3 times now.
Well, I had to get all this in. This game has a lighthearted, fun appeal to it. It doesn't take itself real seriously, even though the plot's sort of serious. And even when you're playing, it always seems like a good time, like a fun, like frittery good time. It's a light souffle of a game. Your thoughts?
This is a good game.
Yeah.
I did play this when it came out, although I do not remember it from that time. I remember it only from when I played it here recently.
Yeah.
Most of these early 3D games, and I'm not talking about the ones that are established in 3D. I'm talking about the ones that tried to make the transition.
Yeah.
Are crap. Your Street Fighters, your Mortal Kombats, those type of games.
Mortal Kombat 4, holy smokes, what a disaster.
They were no good.
Yeah.
So this coming out of nowhere for a Capcom game and being fun was a tremendous surprise.
Yeah.
Like you said, the characters are diverse and fun. They all have something about them that makes them unique. Either they're huge, or they've got a bat, or something about them makes them stand out from the crowd.
The sports elements of them are actually fun. It seems dopey, but when a dude's wailed on you with a soccer ball or hitting you like a volleyball, it's funny and painful all at once.
So I have nothing but good things to say about the cast. Especially considering the concept that they have, because they could have easily fallen into the trap of just making generic student A.
Yeah.
And they didn't. These are for the most part, they're really fun to play. Secondly, while there are unique and deep concepts, the counters, the juggles, the team up moves, the way you do throws, it's all very friendly. The very first thing I did, I picked Sakura, and I tried to throw a fireball with a keyboard, and I threw it no problem. That's when I knew, okay, we're not looking for the original Street Fighter precision on these things. It's very loosey-goosey. And that's a good thing, because the game is fast, and you want to just get in there and do your thing and throw your punches and have a good time. Is this a deep, serious mega fighter? It's not. And the main reason why is it is not difficult to juggle your opponent for 3/4 of their life.
It is for me. I've always been bad at juggling.
It's really not that hard, Aaron.
Yeah, but you could tell. Even I was juggling guys in this, and I don't usually do it.
So you're not gonna. I don't know if this ever made an Evo. But I would imagine it would have been a horrible, horrible Evo experience if it did. But for your sitting on the couch, playing with a buddy, or even playing by yourself, Romp, it lets you do things that look cool with minimal effort.
Yeah.
And I'm not just, there are times when you can get built-in combos. And what I mean by that is if you hit light punch 4 times, you're actually going to chain together 4 hits. It's going to change the animation and do a 4-hit combo.
Sort of like what Tekken does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's good.
Yeah, it's
for
good.
a game like this. That's good. The team up moves are always fun to watch.
Yes.
Some of them are a little long. Another guy I played, he's just a big, strong guy. So when you bring him in, he just stands there with his chest pumped out.
Yeah. The big, huge guy.
And the opponent's just punching on him, and then he smacks and he sends him flying, and the partner just bows as he walks off stage. That one is a little long, and it feels long. But for the most part, they flow pretty well with the combat. And the reason why that's important and the reason why I bring it up is you are going to be doing these team-up moves a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. Because it is not hard to charge your meter in this game.
No. Especially if you've got one of the girls on your team. They can get it. You can try to take the max.
And that's fine. That's fine for the type of fighter that this is. Really, I don't have any bad things to say about this game. It's not the best looking game. It is an early polygonal fighter.
It looked good when it came out. That's for sure.
Sure. I mean, it's not Virtual Fighter bad, but it's real close to
it. It still looks better than you would guess, and that's what
I will agree with that.
I think the choices they made, you can tell when they put this together, they learned something from Star Gladiator, which also looks better than it could have. But this. And I think I said it's better to take characters we've never seen before and do this.
No, I 100% agree with that. Yes.
One of the I want to mention this to you and get your thoughts on. I was reading about the sequel to this, which sequel came out on Naomi, which is the Dreamcast hardware, and then ultimately became a Dreamcast game. This one you add an extra partner, and you've got 3 different partners. But what they've done in this one is when you do a double team move. Your opponent can hit a counter, and there's like a 5-second fight between the 2 characters that are coming in from the sideline.
That's cool.
Like a mini game fight, and the first person to land a shot wins. They can prevent you from hitting the tag move, which I thought that was kind of a pretty. I'm going to try that. I haven't tried that game before.
Absolutely. And this is not a. You can bring your opponent in, or your teammate in, and you can swap between rounds, but that's it. This is a team fighter. I'm not saying that. But when most people think of a team fighting game, this is not what they're thinking.
What do you think about that in a team? Do you like that? Do you think that would be a nice option to have just for fun?
I don't know if it would fit with this game as it is currently programmed. For the main reason is you can tag in so safely, because there were times when you were just miles away from your opponent.
I mean, no, what I'm saying is to take this concept and put it into other games. That'd be kind of fun. It'd be a nice option to have. Not the beating part, but the tagging part.
No.
You don't like that. So you don't like swapping in between rounds on your bag.
No, I mean the Fatal Fury games you can do that. I
don't like the Fatal Fury games.
Well, the King of Fighter games you can do it there too. You just hold a button down and whatever button you hold down, that's who will come out and fight.
No. What I'm saying is, since this game you can't tag at your leisure, putting that element in games where you can tag at your leisure.
No, I don't like that
idea.
No, I don't like that at all.
I want to. This game got some ports. I want to talk about this real quick, and then we'll move on. So, of course, the big port of this was the PlayStation. This also got Vita release, PlayStation Portable. Where you would think it would got. But in Japan, only in Japan did they do this. There's a second disc to this game in Japan. And the second disc has a bunch of mini games. They're supposed to be pretty good. Sort of like Pokemon, but good. With the characters. But they've also got like a dating simulator. Like it's a high school.
I can believe it.
It's a high school life simulator. But what this ultimately means is you can make your own fighters with this thing to play in the game.
Yeah.
And so I read that when of course, it didn't get ported to the United States. They said they had almost finished the translation to English, but then they just didn't think it would work. And they're probably right.
They're right.
And also, especially with the translators they had, it probably wouldn't work. So when they made the sequel to this, they did the same thing. It's got the extra stuff in it. And they also didn't send this to America. But what they did do is they took all the combinations you could make and just added those fighters to the game. So it's got an additional, 10 fighters that weren't in the arcade that came from the dating simulator thing. Kind of neat. I think someone has translated that by now.
Oh, I'm sure there's a translation
You know.
patch. That sounds like something right for it. Aaron, did we get any reviews for this?
We did. We did get a review, and you can guess who it was from. And
Did Terry send in a review?
no, not Terry. It was our good buddy Pajako. Pajako played this on the PlayStation, which, by the way, PlayStation version, quite good.
It is.
He writes in, so this is going to be one tough one to judge. As a lot of other fighting games, you need to sink some serious time into learning to be able to pull off the moves. It takes time to get good at these kind of games, and a couple hours one evening is not enough. Thankfully, the moves are Street Fighter 2-esque, and I was able to pull off some moves on the PlayStation D-pad, although I've never felt that a standard D-pad were pretty good with these types of moves. When I'm new to a game, I tend to panic and revert to frantic button mashing. Graphically, an earliest Polygon fighter fares quite well, although some of the characters close up are freaky looking. Audio is pretty much bang on what I would have expected for this kind of game that's good. One thing I'm not a fan of are the super hit multi-moves.
Oh.
If you are new to games like this, you'll make mistakes, and it really isn't fun to sit there and watch your character get obliterated, knowing you're going down. I don't know. I mean, you're right, but overall, I enjoyed my time with Rival Schools, and I feel like I can improve quickly and see a couple of endings. If you like Street Fighter 2/Tekken type games, you'll probably enjoy this. I would need weeks of intense montage training before I'd be comfortable playing two players. 8 out of 10. I mean, yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it, and I would say you could get good at this fairly quickly. I do. I mean,
Well,
I'm sorry,
good is such a relative term.
I was reading this. Somebody had mentioned that this was being shown at E3. I think it was the same time that they had marched out Street Fighter 3, right? And they were saying everyone at E3 was looking at this, like losing their minds at how fun and great it was. Because again, you're right. This isn't going to be something you're going to probably see at one of the big fighting game competitions, but just for a good time.
Yeah.
And fighting games, you're not often. That's not usually the MO on a fighting game because they made smart choices here. They didn't have the coolest guys. They put together schools. And it was fun. And I thought to myself, what a great concept for a modern fighting game in West Virginia you could do this. Now, hear me out, right? Because you've got your low end, like we're running out of money school with the hillbillies in it.
Well, that's 90% of them.
Hold on a second. Then you've got your charter schools. You get those. You got your Christian schools. You know, your religious type schools. You get those in there. And you get some sporty stuff. You can make it all happen. You get your musical schools. I saw in the second game there's a chick with a violin fighting you. You could get to do the banjo, wailing on you. You know, I could see this content. I'd love to see this fleshed out in a West Virginia fighting game for the different schools. And the funny thing is, if you put 5 or 6 schools in the game at the rate we're going, that would be every high school we've got left in the state. Before we're all congealed into one huge high school that sits in Work County, centrally located. This game is dirt cheap on the PlayStation. If you want the arcade version, good luck. That I didn't even see any for list, but I'm sure they're going to go for the big money.
Out there, yeah.
That's all I got.
Aaron, you know what is not a rival to you and I?
What's that?
That's the wheel.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot
Let's
about
get
that.
a little bit of wheel action, Aaron. What did you add to the wheel
This
today?
week, we added a suggestion from the Pack Billy. Games better to watch than play.
Wow.
It sounds great for the audience, but bad for us.
And we did leave chat choice on
We got a
for
lot of
one more
people in
week.
chat, so this may be your time to shine, chat. Here we go. Get it in there. Oh, we barely missed it. Okay,
And
what's the
we've
winner?
got
The winner is oh man, another Rushi. Non-engaged Symbian OS games. So we've got to play Symbian OS
up there,
games
Aaron.
that are not on the Engage. Well, every week it's something. Thank you, Rushi. You've done it again. Good Lord. That'll be in 2 weeks, Brent. Let's touch. We got 2 weeks to figure out what that card means.
We're gonna have to send that to the Bachaco Labs for translation.
Next week is the rotation.
Oh, it's not good when Bachaco says "ouch" in chat.
Yeah. Next week, as the rotation makes another turn, we're going back to the Atari ST show, everybody's favorite. This time around, we'll be playing the game based on the film starring Henry Winkler and a cast of thousands about the two mortuary operators that start becoming pimps. It's not really based on that film, but it is called Night Shift. I wish it was based on that great film. Michael Keaton, Henry Winkler. It's an all-time classic if you haven't seen it. That'll be next week, Sunday, May 30th, 6 p.m. It'll be Night Shift on the Atari ST show. And in 2 weeks, whatever that card said. That's what we got going on. It'll be okay, the Brent. Don't worry.
It won't.
Hey, listen, if it made Brent cry, it can't be all bad. That's all we got, everybody. Thanks for joining us for another ARG Presents. I hope you enjoyed yourselves and maybe learned a thing or two. Brent, any final loving parting words for our fine listeners and viewers at home?
Nope.
All right. Until next time, please stay in school. Bye.
We got it going. With a spin of the wheel, we'll uncover our fate and stream it to you all in one take. We tend to be loud and we fight quite a bit, but it's an unscripted show, so you get what you get. If we stopped it right now and we just walked away, we'd be back next week, 'cause we just can't wait to play.